Welcome. This is Uncommon Sense, a podcast presented by the MRG CPA Knowledge Centre. The Centre is an initiative of the CPA Education Foundation, the charitable arm of the Chartered Professional Accountant profession in Alberta. Our episodes feature conversations with Alberta CPAs sharing their insights on a wide range of timely topics. Alberta CPAs work in every part of the economy and volunteer their time and expertise in virtually every community in Alberta. With each episode, we bring you voices and perspectives that reflect the diverse knowledge and contributions that CPAs bring to our province. Hello, I'm Jessica DeGroot, Manager with the CPA Education Foundation. On this episode of Uncommon Sense, we'll be talking about a subject that is as complex as it is interesting. That subject is investing for Canadians. Whether it's part of your retirement planning or a smart way to help you maximize your net wealth, investing is something almost all of us think about doing at one point or another. We're joined on this podcast by a CPA who can help us walk through the world of investing and how investing can be a crucial part of your overall financial planning. Ryan Gubic, founder and personal CFO of MRG Wealth based in Calgary, is a skilled and experienced financial advisor. He offers services ranging from investment planning to tax advice and overall financial strategizing. He is a chartered professional accountant, a chartered investment manager, and a certified financial planner. He holds a master's in business administration and is also a registered portfolio manager and licensed insurance advisor in Calgary. Ryan also recently completed a term as a member of the CPA Education Foundation Board of Governors. Given Ryan's wide range of expertise, we've got a lot of ground to cover with him, so our conversation with Ryan is going to be a two-parter. In this episode, we'll talk with Ryan about his professional background, how he came to establish his own financial management firm, and his thoughts on investing for Canadians. In our next episode, Ryan will talk about what he calls a holistic approach to financial planning, managing risk when investing, and some of the non-financial considerations that go into financial planning. I'm very much looking forward to hearing from Ryan, so let's get started. Welcome to Uncommon Sense, Ryan.
Hi, Jessica. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So as always, we'll start this episode by asking you to share a piece of uncommon sense. So that is a piece of advice or words of wisdom that you have learned over the course of your career. But because our entire conversation over these two episodes will pretty much be you sharing uncommon as well as common sense, I'll put you on the spot and ask that your opening piece of uncommon sense not be related to investment or financial planning. What do you have for us that kind of fits that bill?
So one of the pieces of advice or wisdom I've picked up along my journey over the years relates to so many areas of our lives. And it does tie in a bit to investing, but it ties into health and relationships and so many other areas. And that is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So whatever it is that you're thinking about doing or wishing you have done earlier, remember, you can't change the past, but the best option you have is available to start today.
Yeah, that is great advice. I love that so much because we're always looking for the perfect time for everything and kind of beating ourselves up about, what we haven't done. So yeah, might as well just leave the past in the past and do what you can with today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so let's start off our discussion by providing a brief overview of the factors that led to your interest in earning your CPA designation and then becoming a financial planner and investment advisor.
So it started early with me, not to take you back too long, but it was when I was growing up as a child, actually. I was one of the probably rare individuals that knew by the time I was 12 that I wanted to be an accountant, to give you an idea. Yeah, so growing up, my parents worked hard. My dad had multiple jobs. We were kind of lower middle class, had a roof over our head, food, full bellies, but they were always working really hard. And one of the things they would say to me is they're working really hard so that I could then work smart. And this led to a thirst to learn about money for me. I wanted to learn about how to make it. How do you grow it? How do you pay less taxes? Why do we drive, rusty cars and, the neighbor drives a new car? Why do, some families have multiple vacations a year, and why is it so challenging for others? And money is often a tool or, enabler to, live a specific lifestyle that you want. So that kind of led me down the path of learning about money. And when you're learning about money, I think there's no better start than, accounting and the CPA professional. It's really the language of money. So I went through school, did a double major accounting and finance commerce degree, and went on to do my CPA right after so I could learn about the language of money. My father was also working at the Canada Revenue Agency, so he was an accountant at the time, so great role model growing up to learn and discuss that further.
Mm-hmm. That is really interesting. I find a lot of our guests, when I ask them about their CPA journey, they did not intend to be accountants from a young age. It was kind of just something that came about. But that's really interesting that you kind of already had your sights set on that at an early age.
Yeah, I kind of started as the accountant and then morphed into the financial advisor and led into MRG Wealth. Mm-hmm. So after I became a CPA, I realized how much more there was to learn about money. So I continued lifelong quest to learn how to solve the challenges related to money and make systems and strategies to make the journey easier. Along that journey, I went on to do my MBA, learn more about business and how, what separates profitable businesses from unprofitable businesses. So not just kind of in the family or personal wealth space, but also in broader economics and business space. Became a certified financial planner, then to leverage the CPA learnings with the MBA to help families. Became a chartered investment manager, a discretionary portfolio manager, and also an insurance advisor. Along my journey, I kept on hearing family, friends, colleagues. I'm always frustrated with the same type of challenges and problems related to money and a lack of advice and planning. And some of those included volatile investments, creating uncertainty and worry, limited or no planning, being not sure if they're on track or if what they're doing is the best that they should be doing for them. No tax optimization, causing them to pay more tax than they could be. And then missing advice, quite often leading to costly mistakes. Mm-hmm. So I created MRG Wealth to solve these challenges and help make the journey easier for families.
So was that kind of the main decision as to why you started your own firm, MRG Wealth, was just hearing about, all of this from friends and family and people like that?
Absolutely. Kept on hearing these common problems that kept on coming up and weren't be solved. So along my journey, I've learned so much about money and wealth and still have so much more to learn. But this was a number of years ago when I decided to start the firm and take action to help others.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you wear quite a few different hats. So what types of services does MRG Wealth offer?
So we offer one main service. It's a personal CFO service that combines holistic financial planning, discretionary investment management, and tax-optimized insurance solutions with ongoing advice. And the reason we do that one service, we don't do kind of a la carte, is to really make a tangible difference in a family's life. It requires integrating all those components together, the holistic planning, the discretionary investment management, the advice, the tax optimization. All those need to be working together to be efficient and effective with your money. So ultimately create a system to help families achieve financial independence and security with a clear roadmap and a proven system.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more of the details of that later on. But before we do, maybe can you just explain how your CPA education and skills really help you and MRG Wealth to succeed?
Well, my CPA, like my other designations, is critical to helping me and the team in MRG Wealth help my clients succeed. My CPA specifically helped teach me the language of money, and knowledge can be very powerful. So for example, not everyone needs to know how to create an income statement and a balance sheet, but I would suggest it's very important that everyone understand how to read financial statements. So both companies' financial statements as well as their own. It's so easy to get caught up in the rat race of life, but take a moment to think. When was the last time you reviewed your own personal balance sheet or net worth statement and your budget? So this helps you move from being what I would call unintentional with money to the power of being intentional. And as CPA helped me understand how to put all this together and simplify some of the complex financial items to share with families so that they can action their own lives.
And I'm sure you see this too. Like a lot of people, they don't really pay attention to their own personal financial situation because sometimes it's not the best and it probably doesn't make them feel good to look at it. So then it's just kind of like an avoidance thing, which is probably terrible because you do need to know what's going on, but then things can just get way out of hand.
Yeah, there's a couple areas. One is, I think, human behavior. We tend to shy away or avoid things that we don't like or find difficult or stressful. And money can be one of the most stressful things in a person's life. The other thing is we quite often don't teach people, whether it be kids or adults or senior professionals, about personal finances. When you think about the journey throughout school, you have, grade school, then you do post-secondary, and then you do designations if you do that. But there's not really a huge opportunity where someone learns, the core items around personal finances and how to set them up for success, unless they've been taught by, either their advisor or a family member or someone that's coached them along the way. So there's a big, I think, lack of financial literacy around this space, mainly because we don't teach it.
Yeah, very true. And it is important. I think everybody should know at least a little bit about personal finance, but yeah, I don't think it's in the curriculum.
Yeah, it's a bit of a gap right now, but it's being worked on, I think.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about investing. First off, does a person need to be wealthy in order to start investing?
Definitely not. In fact, investing is a tool used by many people to become wealthy. So there's no time too early to start. I'll just share a story with you. I started teaching my daughters about investing when they were about 5 years old. So obviously they're way too young to have investment accounts like adults have. But investing is about taking your savings and putting it to work so you can have more in the future than you have today. So what I did with my daughters is I created an investment bank of dad and gave my daughters an option to invest, only if they wanted to. When they receive money from their birthdays or Christmas from relatives, they have the option to invest in the bank of dad or spend everything they received. Returns were always pretty good with the bank of dad, and they quickly learned that if they gave up some instant gratification by not spending today, that they'd have more money tomorrow and could buy a bigger toy or whatever they wanted. So that behavior of investing and that emotional piece is important, I think, to start early. And again, going back to that tree statement, if you didn't start early, the next best time is to start today.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the return rate is at the bank of dad. That sounds pretty awesome. I think my dad should open up that type of bank.
Yeah, the bank of dad had 100% return consistently for the daughters. But it was a great opportunity to teach the psychological and emotional and behavior aspect of it, because especially when we all get money, but children specifically, they get excited. They don't have jobs, they don't have steady income. So in a few periods a year when a relative or friend or family member gives them money, it's a really big deal. Now they have power and some control to go out and spend it and buy something that they otherwise couldn't for themselves. So by teaching the concept of having to have some self-discipline at a really early age and trying to save some of that, and especially with the great returns that the investment bank of dad was providing, they quickly realized, hey, I could get, the bigger toy that I actually wanted if I just waited, a year or waited 6 months.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing with that age. Not only are you teaching them a really great principle, but you're also avoiding them buying junk that they're not going to be interested in 10 minutes.
Yeah. I think we all get caught up into that sometimes.
So how is investing done these days? Is it completely online?
Depends on the type of investing. So are you buying stocks and funds, real estate investment property, farmland, private businesses? So, investing takes many forms and shapes. And technology is definitely used in, most, if not all of them. But it's used as a tool to help you invest. It's also enabled access to information and advice. So for example, access to advisors and teams across Canada now with virtual meetings is an example to get quality advice. Or if you've worked with your advisor and you move away or you're retiring, you can now use technology to stay connected and often still get advice and support.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to investing. I think if you aren't familiar, you often have that picture in your mind of, the stockbrokers in downtown New York at the stock exchange, yelling out numbers. And you might think like that is investing and you have to like call these people. And, it's come a long way.
Absolutely. It's come a long way. The core, though, hasn't changed. The fundamentals of investing your hard-earned money into something that is managing the risks while also growing or generating cash flow that you're looking for. So those fundamental pieces, when you're looking at an investment, no different than a stock or a company or a real estate investment property or so forth, those fundamentals haven't changed a whole lot over the years. What has changed is the tools we use. So, for example, the picture you just shared of stockbrokers and the New York Stock Exchange 40 years ago all yelling in the pit, where now technology is quite often digital tickets throughout. Even on the do-it-yourself investor front, there's a lot more tools available to both professionals and the general public now to either invest, to learn about investing, to execute investing. And with those tools also come with a number of additional risks. And we'll talk more about the risks in the next episode, but that's also something to be very careful and pay attention to.
Aside from the potential risks, this might seem like an obvious question, but what are the benefits of investing?
Well, the benefits quite often align with the purpose of the investment, or at least should align with the purpose of the investment. So for many Canadians, investing can enable them to send their kids to get an education, for example, or move to their dream home, or achieve financial independence, or retire and live the lifestyle they want. So it really depends what that person or family is set out what they want to do, and then matching investments to enable and achieve that.
Yeah, sounds pretty straightforward. What are the primary financial considerations that a person should keep in mind when they're setting out to invest?
This is where it's so important to develop a financial plan and a strategy before investing. So if you think of investing is, again, just a tool to get you from where you are to where you want to be. What are your goals and what do you want to accomplish? That's really the foundational and starting point. How does all aspects of your financial life integrate together, such as budgeting, tax, investing, risk, retirement, and estate? And what do you need to do to achieve your goals? Are you on track? If you're not on track, what are your options to get on track? So those are some of the fundamental considerations before you even pull the trigger and start investing. Get the answers to those questions.
And what would you say are the most common goals when it comes to investing? I mean, of course, everybody wants to be a millionaire and not really have to worry about money, but do people, is it most common that people want to invest for their children's education or retirement in general, or are there other goals that are quite common?
So I'd say by far the most common goal is financial independence and security. So whether you call that retirement in the traditional sense, or financial independence, and someone wants to change their job and maybe work part-time and be comfortable with their cash flow in the back end, that looks slightly different to every individual. But the core goal around that financial independence, having an income stream that is passive income, meaning that they don't have to wake up in the morning and rely on going on to their job to get a paycheck, to put food on the table, to put a roof over their head, to live the life they want. That's a very common goal for many Canadians. And it also ties in with just general life. Our bodies are generally not geared to work until we're 95, right? There's an age where we do get tired and we need more sleep and we need more rest. So, our working years are slightly different than our later years. And then for each person, of course, what that vision or journey looks like can be drastically different. I know individuals that are in their 30s that have achieved financial independence and live a lifestyle that they're very comfortable with. I know other individuals that are in their 80s and still working and living a lifestyle that they love. So it looks different for everybody. And then, of course, other goals depends on the family. So many families with children do have a goal to help their children with post-secondary education to help make their journey easier. There could be goals on trips or travel if that's a value to the family. There could be, a number of different goals depending on that individual and what's important to them.
when it comes to investing, a lot of people think, well, I'm saving money and I have it in my savings account. But is investing really the same thing as saving?
No. For the most part, saving is required before investing. So we don't just wake up and have a magical investment portfolio usually to manage, unless we win the lottery or there's an inheritance or something of that nature. So it's the act of saving or forgoing spending today to have more in the future that really helps establish and funds to be able to invest. Similar to the story I shared with my daughters. That's why I wanted to teach that behavior of saving at a very early age. And that's one of the, I guess, big takeaways I think many adults can apply as well. And it's very difficult when we have many competing priorities and many different expenses and, there's the rat race of life. But the core principle of investing does require spending. So always spending less than you make, having some of the savings to then add to your portfolio and then make smart decisions with your portfolio. So that is a critical, I guess, ingredient to investing and generating wealth.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, in today's economy, there might be some listeners that are like, I don't have much left over, or, maybe they don't even have $20 or $100 left over at the end of the month with the cost of living right now. And, maybe they also have some debt that they're trying to manage. Do you have any, practical tips on how someone can kind of just get started with investing, even if they don't have a lot?
Absolutely. One of the best things to do is change mindset around money for many people. So for many, and kind of what you just alluded to, right? You have expenses, and at the end of the month, you usually don't have anything left. It's kind of a backwards system where we spend and then we see what's left to save. And it's much more efficient and effective if we start with the saving in mind. So even if you start small and say, okay, I want to save $50 or $100 or whatever the amount is, but start that first, right? So the first of the month, paycheck goes in or whatever date that your income comes in, take the savings off right away. Then you have kind of your fixed expenses. So if you have a mortgage or rent and things like that, they need to get covered. And then really what's left over, that's your discretionary spending. So that's your spending if you're, going to buy a lunch or a coffee or do an activity. And all of a sudden, many people will quickly see by that mindset shift and that process shift of saving first, and kind of it's also called paying yourself first instead of last. Over the course of months and years, you'll actually be able to increase that savings amount. Right. So I'd say that's a big thing that many people can do if they're not doing right now to help them into that saving behavior and set up for investments.
Yeah. And I feel like, too, if you do that, then with your discretionary spending, if you do have to cut something out, it's, it makes it very clear what is kind of like the least or the lowest on the priority list. Absolutely.
Again, you want to pay yourself first. If your goals that you had outlined are the most important things for you to succeed, by keeping those top of mind and going after those first, then the discretionary spending, the things that are, instant gratification or that you enjoy, but really not as important as those core goals you had, that can make a big difference. That being said, fully acknowledge and understand the cost of inflation and just the cost of life right now is very expensive. So it's more important now than ever to kind of integrate systems and strategies and processes into your life to try and be as efficient and as effective as you can to achieve your goals.
Mm-hmm. So you touched on retirement before, like very briefly as a common goal of investing. So how does investing specifically fit into a person's overall retirement planning?
Well, for retirement planning or financial independence, most Canadians rely on their investment portfolio. In the past, it's been a pension, but very few Canadians that the pensions are less and less these days. So it's an investment portfolio that's generating cash flow and growth to support their lifestyle. So by managing risks, by investing smartly, they can take a finite amount of money, because people generally don't have unlimited investment portfolios, unlimited money. They have to take a finite amount that they've worked really hard to save and stretch that out for the rest of their life so that they can have a monthly or yearly income to live and do the things that they want to do with.
Mm-hmm. In your opinion, how much money would someone have to have in order to comfortably retire? I know it would probably vary greatly based on lifestyle, but is there kind of like a number in mind that would be a good goal?
Yeah, so that's a really important question. And the answer is really different to every person that's asking it. So going back to the financial planning piece that I mentioned earlier, that's why the core foundational step is to really understand what are your goals, what are you trying to accomplish, and then build a plan around that. So once you understand what your goals are, and part of your goals would be lifestyle and retirement. So are you living in Calgary? Are you living somewhere else? Are you snowbirding? Are you living in a condo or a house? Do you have children or other family members? How often do you see them? What type of financial involvement do you want to do? What type of activities or sports or travel? All those type of pieces, as they fit into your goals, then will generate kind of a budget or a cash flow needs projection saying, okay, this is how much you need to have to be able to live that life and achieve that goal. And then part of the planning process, we work with our clients to map out, okay, what is the total amount you need in your investment portfolio at the specific age that you want to achieve financial independence to enjoy that lifestyle without running out. So it does vary from individual to individual. An individual that wants to stay at home and loves reading books and, makes under $50,000 a year is going to need likely a different retirement portfolio than a CEO making a couple million a year and travels monthly and has 3 vacation properties and, 5 kids that wants to support. So, it really depends on the individual, what their goals are and what success looks like for them.
Right. So we kind of touched on this earlier in the conversation about the goals for investing, but are there reasons for investing other than as a tool for retirement planning that you'd like to elaborate?
Yeah, going back to the kind of core reason of why do people invest? If someone had $1 billion and they could just put it in their mattress or a savings account and take money out whenever they wanted, there still could be obviously reasons for them to invest, but the need is not the same as someone that has a finite amount of money. For many people, it's the amount of money they have is not enough to do everything they want. So then they use investing as a tool to help grow that, to enable them to achieve their goals. So goal, again, we talked about different goals, but goals can be anywhere from supporting their kids and helping pay for some post-secondary education, buying a house or a cabin or trips or travel, building a legacy, passing it on to the next generation, or giving back to the community or to other organizations, donations, wide variety of areas that are important to people that they have goals and drive the reason on why they want to invest and maximize the use of their hard-earned money that they saved to provide more of an outcome for them.
All right. Well, we've covered a lot of ground already, and I think that's a perfect spot to wrap up part 1 of our conversation with you, Ryan. So thanks so much for being here and sharing so much of your knowledge and your own career story. I look forward to hearing more from you on our next episode. So listeners, be sure to watch out for part 2 of our conversation with Ryan.
Thanks, Jessica.
The Uncommon Sense podcast is presented by the CPA Education Foundation and funded by the Heshe CPA Knowledge Center. The Knowledge Center was created through a generous donation by the late Brian Heshe. Brian was a distinguished Albertan, business leader, CPA, educator, and community builder. His generosity and commitment to education underpinned his good works across Alberta throughout his lifetime. The opinions expressed on Uncommon Sense do not necessarily reflect the views of the CPA Education Foundation. We would like to acknowledge that CPA Education Foundation offices are situated on the traditional Treaty 6 and Treaty 7 territories and Métis Nation homeland. The Foundation acknowledges that we reside on traditional and ancestral territories of many Indigenous, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Their histories and culture influence our community to this day. The Foundation is committed to helping build a province where Indigenous people and their voices and experiences are heard, valued, respected, and celebrated. Technical and recording services for this podcast provided by Wolf Willow Studios in Edmonton. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends about us. If you have any comments about the podcast, write to us at cpaef@cpaalberta.ca. To learn more about the CPA Education Foundation and the Heshie CPA Knowledge Centre, visit cpaalberta.ca/foundation.